Hey, what's up? This is Harry Wagner from Harry Situations, and today I want to talk to you about tires, specifically all-terrain versus mud-terrain tires, the different features, and where one would work better than the other. We've got a Nitto Terra Grappler G2 and a Nitto Trail Grappler that we're going to take out and put through their paces on freeways, paved roads, dirt roads. We'll air them down and take them rock crawling, and we're hopefully going to find some mud and snow today too, to compare which one works better in different terrain. This is a 35 by 12.5 R17 Nitto Terra Grappler G2 all-terrain tire. So this tire has 17.4 30 seconds tread depth. Tread depth is measured in 30 seconds. It's actually really good for an all-terrain tire. It has smaller voids than the Trail Grappler, but more siping and more voids. Siping are these little cuts in the tires. On the Terra Grappler, they're shaped like a lightning bolt. What that does versus a straight sipe is it provides more strength for this tread block. The tread block is less likely to move around, and those sipes provide a place for snow, ice, or water to evacuate from the tire. So these are going to be a lot better in winter conditions. This is actually a 3 mountain snow peak rated tire. What that means is that it's basically a snow tire you can run without chains if there's chain control. They work really well in winter conditions. That's one of the telltale signs of an all-terrain tire. You're going to have smaller interlocking tread blocks. And the sipes, while they provide an evacuation place for water, also provide the ability for the tire to chunk if you're using it in hard rock crawling or off-road where you're spinning it a lot. This is a 35-inch Nitto I have mounted on AEV Pintler wheels. This combination weighs 90 pounds. The 37-inch Trail Grappler on the beadlock wheel weighs 107 pounds. So that's 17 pounds more per corner of rotating mass that you have to accelerate and brake. This is a load range E tire, which means that you can inflate it to 65 PSI. At that PSI, each tire will support 3,195 pounds apiece. This is Nitto's Trail Grappler. This is a 37 by 12.5 R17 radial tire I have mounted on AEV Pintler rims that are beadlocked. This tire and wheel combination weighs 107 pounds. This is a D load range tire, but this tire actually can hold over 3,500 pounds apiece. So just because this is a load range D versus E doesn't necessarily mean that it can hold more weight, is something to keep in mind. They have 21 30 seconds tread depth when they're new, so that's about 4 30 seconds deeper than the Terra Grappler. Also, the voids are bigger on a mud terrain tire. The lugs are bigger, and what that does is it allows it to work in mud because it'll evacuate out things like sand, mud, any sort of loose terrain, and keep clawing forward with traction. This video has been brought to you by Nitto Tire USA. I not only run Nittos on my Jeep, but also on my Ram tow rig, on my big Ford on 40s, on my Tracker rock crawler. Nitto makes tires in a variety of sizes and different applications for everything from drift cars to side-by-sides. Check out all their offerings at nittotire.com. We're here in Reno, Nevada. We are driving down some surface streets right now with the 35-inch Nitto Terra Grappler G2 tires on the Jeep. The biggest thing I noticed when I put these tires on, I've been running the 37-inch Trail Grapplers for about the past year, and I'll confess that running a smaller, less aggressive tire is underwhelming aesthetically. I like to pride myself on being very scientific and concerned about the data and how well things work, but when I looked at the Jeep, I was like, it definitely looks not as aggressive as it does on the 37-inch Trail Grapplers. But we just came to a stop at a stop sign, and the first thing I noticed when I put these tires on is the decreased weight and decreased rolling resistance at stop signs. With the 37-inch Trail Grapplers, I basically take my foot off the accelerator, the Jeep comes to a stop on its own. These tires roll much smoother, and you have to use the brakes when you come to a stop. Acceleration is also noticeably better, as is braking, and that's the trade-off, I guess, with running a large aggressive tire, is that it's not going to work as well on the road. I don't think that's any secret, but a lot of us are guilty, myself included, in making our tire purchases based on aesthetics rather than where we actually use the vehicle. Another complaint I've had about this Jeep is the 4-liter engine just not having the power to move the 37s down the road, and going to a slightly smaller tire that is considerably lighter has really resolved those issues. The 4 liters completely adequate when you have a 35-inch Terra Grappler G2 on here. The 538 gears are a little low. If I was going to gear for these tires, I'd probably choose 513s. I had 488s in this Jeep previously with 35s, and that was a reasonable combination also. But I'm not going to complain too much about the 538s because the acceleration is great. And top speed has never been the strong point of a Jeep anyway. We're on a bumpy dirt road now leading up to Dog Valley. This is the sort of terrain 99% of people traverse. This is what you would expect to find in some place like Death Valley or on Mojave Road. We have the Nitto Terra Grappler G2 all-terrain tires on the Jeep right now, and honestly, they work perfectly well in a situation like this. They provide plenty of traction. Vehicles like Tacomas and 4Runners are popular for overlanding, and people are always asking, do you need drawers? Do you need ditch lights? And really the only upgrade you need to go off-road and to go overlanding is a set of good all-terrain tires that are going to be puncture resistant and provide great traction off-road with really no compromises for daily driving and use on-road as well. We're going to search for some mud today, but I will confess that mud is not my favorite terrain, and we also live in Reno. We live in the desert. It might be hard to find. The mud we find certainly won't be akin to what you would find in someplace like Florida or Louisiana, where they have these bottomless mud pits and super sticky mud. But if that's your thing, then honestly, the Nitto Mud Grappler is going to be the best choice for your use. I normally run 30 PSI on the road, and we're going to air down to 15 PSI for the trail. At 15 PSI, you don't really have to worry about losing the bead, even with a non-bead lock wheel. That tire pressure will allow the tire to conform more to the terrain, which provides better traction and also a better ride as the tire moves around for different obstacles. You don't want to run such a low air pressure on the street. The reason being there's a lot of rolling resistance, and that results in heat. So not only will you get terrible mileage, but you risk overheating the carcass of the tire, which can cause it to fail. I have an ARB twin air compressor on this Jeep so I can air up the tires at the end of the day when I head back to the pavement. You definitely want some sort of onboard air source, whether it's a small portable compressor, a CO2 tank like a power tank, or something like this. After airing down from 30 PSI to 15 PSI, the ride is markedly improved on this road that is dirt, but it has a bunch of cobbly sized rocks in it. The tire's conforming much better to the terrain and taking a lot of the harshness out of the ride on this trail.
Get up in it and like try to tear through it.
The mistake I made was, once I had ceased forward momentum, I kept the tires spinning, and all that does is make you sink. So now the belly of the Jeep and the axles are stuck in the snow, the tires are barely on the ground. If you notice yourself slowing down, once the tires are spinning and you're not going forward anymore, get off the gas, and then typically you can back out of the situation. We kind of went into this deep snow in order to get some action footage up here by ourselves with one vehicle. Managed to get stuck. Now the good news is we have a winch, we've got straps, I brought my demo shovel. The bad news is I didn't bring my max tracks, which would probably be the easiest way to get out of this situation. I could just shove them behind the tires. Once I get back up on top of the snow and back up a little bit, I'd be fine. We've got spring conditions, so similar to spring skiing, the snow is really wet, corn snow. And once I broke through, that's why we got stuck. It's not soft, fluffy snow, but this is what we have this time of year to test. I expected to find more mud. Typically when the snow melts, it makes the dirt turn to mud. We haven't really seen much of that today. We have seen some pooled water and mud holes off the side of the trail, but if we encounter some mud, great, we'll document that. And if we don't, we'll just play the hand we were dealt. We're here in Bud Canyon outside of Reno, Nevada. If you watched the Roach YJ video, that was all shot here. Really fortunate to have such a great trail close to town. It's technical and has some big rocks, a great opportunity to test tires. I've been really pleased with how the Terra Grapplers have worked here on the rocks, to be quite honest. I haven't spun a tire once, and if you think of a rock climbing shoe, they don't have any tread at all. It just puts all the rubber on the rock. So these put more rubber on the rocks than a Trail Grappler does. They have smaller voids, smaller lugs. So what that's allowed us to do on the dry rocks is really get great traction. I find that the Trail Grapplers are a better choice in loose terrain where you really need to clean out the lugs and you want to grab on loose sand, mud, dirt. They'll really chew and keep moving you forward, where these might just want to spin. But in most environments, including rocks, the Terra Grappler G2s have been a great choice. We're getting back on the freeway. We just swapped out for the 37-inch Nitto Trail Grapplers on the bead-locked Pentler wheels, and acceleration is notably slower. Not to the point of being dangerous, but definitely having to mash the accelerator to get on the freeway, where before it took considerably less effort. The tires aren't particularly an issue on this Jeep with the soft top, but if you have a luxury vehicle like a Lexus GX or an LX, you're going to notice the tire noise more than you would in something like this where there's plenty of other noises to hear. That's another factor you'll want to keep in mind when you're buying tires, is the vehicle that you have and how you use it. So if you're mostly a daily driver, you can get by with a more pedestrian tire, something with milder tread pattern. If it's a dedicated off-road vehicle, then buy the most aggressive tire you can. Most vehicles like this one split duty as a daily driver and also a weekend warrior, so that's where we're really trying to find the fine line and what works best for different types of environments and different usage. I have to say, I was blown away with how well the Terra Grapplers worked in the rocks. I expected them to be good on dirt roads and obviously on the pavement, but they worked really well in the rocks. We did get stuck in the snow with the Terra Grappler G2s. We'll see if the Trail Grapplers can go and make it through without us having to winch. I've got the 37-inch Nitto Trail Grapplers mounted on AV Pentler wheels, but these have bead locks. So what a bead lock does is physically clamps the tire to the rim with this ring around the outside. And that allows you to run super low air pressure without worrying about the tire coming off the rim. Normally, the air pressure inside a tire pushes out on the beads and keeps it up against the edge of the rim. Double digits above, say, 12 PSI, it's not a big deal. Lower than that, you're gonna have issues with the tire coming off the rim. I find for rock crawling, you don't really need bead locks, to be quite honest. 12 PSI is as low as I typically go in the rocks. Now, if you get into deep snow or sand, lower is better. Single digit pressures I think are great. I'll run down to like 3 PSI in deep snow in order to keep moving forward. So that's where these tires are really gonna shine, is in situations like that. While the Terra Grappler has the 3-peak mountain snowflake rating, they're great for icy roads. That's a very different condition than like deep snow. And while our snow today wasn't great, it's spring conditions, super wet and heavy. In deep snow, the more aggressive tires really churn, they keep biting, working their way forward. But on an icy road, that's not the situation. There you want all of those little sipes that the Terra Grapplers have. They'll evacuate water, keep you from hydroplaning, and keep you moving down the road safely. In the sand, I found that the tire choice was really dependent on the horsepower of the vehicle. My Ford with a 460 in it is great with the Nitto Trail Grapplers on them. They act like little paddles and it'll really throw roost and go just about anywhere. If you have a low horsepower vehicle like this Jeep, I found the Terra Grappler is really a better choice, especially when it's aired down. They don't dig as much, they tend to float more. I might have to rethink which tires I have the beadlock wheels mounted on, because putting the Terra Grapplers on the beadlocks and being able to run single digits, I think would really be the hot setup in the sand with this Jeep. Many of us are guilty of justifying our purchase, particularly when you're spending $1,000 on tires, myself included. I've been fortunate enough over the past 15 years to test a variety of different tire treads from different manufacturers in various sizes. And not all tires are created equal or even best for all situations. So you have to keep in mind what environment you're wheeling in. Be realistic about how much time you spend off-road versus on-road. Also about your vehicle, how heavy is it? You want to look at the load rating and how much weight the tire can carry. And then size is a factor, weight of the tire is a factor. So keep all of these in mind when making your purchase and be realistic about your expectations. No tire is going to be perfect at everything. They're all a compromise to some extent, but pick the best one for you and you won't be disappointed. That's all for this episode. Agree? Disagree? Leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe.